Okay, in section 6.2, we're going to be talking about parallelograms. And there's 5 properties that we need to know. The first one, it's a parallelogram is a quadrilateral with 2 pairs of parallel sides. This is by definition what a parallelogram is. So let's underline a parallelogram. So by definition, a parallelogram is a quadrilateral with 2 pairs of parallel sides. And you have to look for those arrows. Here you can see that it's double arrow and another arrowhead. These 2 are parallel and these 2 sides are parallel. So it's 2 pairs. 1 pair, 2 pairs of parallel sides. So that's by definition what a parallelogram is. Now, all parallelograms, such as parallelogram, this is the symbol for parallelogram. Parallelogram FGHJ have the following properties. So it's basically 4 properties. I said 5, but it's 4 properties and a definition. So the first property, let's put number 1 on the left side. The first property says opposite sides are congruent. So if a quadrilateral is a parallelogram, you can say that it's a parallelogram because there's opposite sides like FG and HJ, those 2 are congruent. And the second pair, the other pair of opposite sides that is congruent is GH and FJ. Those 2 opposite sides are congruent. So if you have that scenario, if you have opposite sides, both pairs of opposite sides congruent, then that would be a parallelogram. Second property. The second property says if you have opposite angles congruent, then the quadrilateral would be a parallelogram. Third property. In the third property, it says if you have consecutive angles, consecutive means right next to. So supplementary add up to 180. So if you have angle F and G adding up to 180, and G with H adding up to 180, and H with J adding up to 180, J with F adding up to 180, those 4, then you can also say this is a parallelogram. An example of that could be like if G is 150, F is 30, H is 30, and J is 150. As you can see, if you add 150 and 30, that's 180. 150 and 30 is 180. 30 and 150 is 180. And 150 and 30 would be 180. So if you have a case like that, then you can say that the quadrilateral is a parallelogram. Fourth property. If you have diagonals bisecting each other, bisecting means cutting each other in half. So for example here, if FH is a diagonal and it cuts GJ in half, and also the other way around, if GJ cuts FH in half, notice that you have congruency marks and double congruency marks, then that means that if you have that given, that means that the quadrilateral, it's a parallelogram. Now let's go ahead and go to the examples. Number 1, find each one of the measures. See, here we can say that example 1 is a parallelogram because the opposite sides by definition are parallel, so therefore this is a parallelogram. So if it's a parallelogram, then we can say that AB, which is what they're looking for, is the same thing as the one opposite to that, which is 10 centimeters. Number 2, the measurement of angle D. Well, since this is a parallelogram because I have opposite sides parallel, then consecutive angles are supplementary. So if A is 110, then 180, we subtract 110, then 70 would be the measurement of angle D. Because they're supposed to be supplementary. Number 3, it says find each measure in parallelogram L, M, and P. So they're already saying that that is a parallelogram. So since that is a parallelogram, they're asking me to get the measurement of ML. ML is this side. Well, opposite sides are congruent. Therefore, ML is 12 meters because opposite sides are congruent. Sorry. Number 4, LP. Well, because opposite sides are congruent, if MN is 10, LP would also be 10. So it's 10 meters. Number 5, angle LPM. So wherever the P is where the angle is formed. LPM. So it's this angle here. So since this is a parallelogram, these two sides are parallel. And if I extend those two sides and I draw that segment MP, you can say that because they're alternate interior angles, then that angle must also be equal to 62 degrees because the sides are parallel. LN. LN is one of the diagonals. Well, if this is a parallelogram, because it's saying here, that little symbol right next to LM and P, it's saying that it's a parallelogram. So since this is a parallelogram, by the property that says that diagonals bisect each other, property number 4, well, we can say that then if LQ it's 9, then QN is going to be 9. And they're asking for LN. So LN is the whole diagonal. So it's 9 plus 9, which is 18. So it's 18 meters. Number 7, the measurement of the angle MLN. MLN. Okay, by alternate interior angles, because those two sides are parallel, then by alternate interior angles, their measurement would be the same. So it's 32 degrees. QN. QN, it's just the same thing as LQ because the diagonal was cut by the other diagonal, so that would be 9. It's 9 meters. And that's it. Let's move on to the second page.